whether it's Klopp not getting enough support from FSG or the staleness or maybe not being able to play with that intensity, what can you put your finger on, Damien, as to why it's gone a bit stale at the moment at Liverpool?
Well, look, there's obviously lots of schools of thought on this. And I suppose the simplest one for me is when they opened the season against Fulham, I was kind of debating with a friend of mine whether they were overcooked or undercooked.
Right.
And I was kind of wondering, did he have a mild pre-season in anticipation for the big year coming up? Did he not work them as hard? And he kind of was under the impression that they might build into the season, especially when you look at their early fixtures, that they kind of pick up speed as they went. But I think the more I'm looking at it now, I think they're overcooked. They really do look like they've been working very, very hard. And it's amazing when a player is tired, mentally is the first thing that will go. Their concentration levels will drop. And there's so many of the Liverpool players now just look fatigued. That team has been on the road for 3 or 4 years, 60, 70 games a season. I think it's just early on in the season. It's almost like standing at at base camp at Everest, and you're looking up it and you're like, geez, we can't climb it again. Whereas if you can kind of get them to 3/4 way up the mountain, the incentive of trophies, the incentive of the big European nights, the knockout stages, the lights come on, all that can reinvigorate a player. But unfortunately, you got to shovel a certain amount of I don't know what the word I'm looking for there is, but snow. Put in the foundations and to get yourself in those positions for come February. And I think that's probably what it is with a lot of those players. It's just standing at base camp thinking, oh man, do we have to go through all this again? The drudgery of picking up 3 points, the pressure of it. And I'm looking at Klopp, and you're kind of thinking of solutions. It's very, very hard, if not impossible, to roll back if your team is overcooked. I know with the postponement of fixtures here, Klopp will probably actually be thinking that if he's willing to if that is the problem, if he's willing to recognise it. I know a lot of managers think, no, they're not. I'm going to keep working them. But he needs to figure out something. And then I suppose if you go to a more deeper, more technical level, you kind of look at, their style has changed over the last maybe 18 months, with the kind of addition of Thiago. I certainly felt that Liverpool under successful, there was an awful lot of forward balls played, an awful lot of almost blind balls by Henderson, spun around the corner into channels. The front three would lock it in, they'd win the ball back up the pitch, and they created an environment where it was very, very difficult to survive. And I think then they kind of drifted from that, and they've gone through more of a kind of a patient build-up, not quite as severe as what Man City are with their ball retention, but they just seem to be recycling the ball and just waiting and probing, and I'm not sure they have enough players. And then obviously if you lose the one player that can give you all that in terms of Thiago, now you're looking at the midfield who's got James Milner, and the team isn't just primed just to pump ball forwards. I think I remember one year when I was playing and looked at Liverpool, statistically they played an enormous amount of long balls, balls that were like longer than say 25 or 30 metres. And everyone thought, well, they're not long balls, they're long passes. When you look at it a lot of the time, they were blind balls. Think Henderson getting the ball off Trent and just whipping it around the corner, over the left back's head, and Salah would chase it, and all of a sudden they'd create carnage. So I suppose that, from a technical point of view, he's moved away from that heavy metal football that we've come accustomed to see with him. And I suppose if you do that and you haven't got an alternative to Alcantara, it can get very, very out of shape very, very quickly.
And defensively as well, Joe Gomez struggled the other night. Trent Alexander-Arnold's been consistently questioned for his defensive play, and Van Dijk doesn't look as imperious as he has been. Yeah,
he definitely one that looks overcooked to me. He looks seriously tired. If you watch him playing, everything is reactionary.
Right.
Everything it's happening, and then he's reacting. And that's not what he's about. He's not a blood and guts defender. He's not like a Vidic or a Martinez that's come into to Man United. This guy is a reader, 2 steps ahead of everybody else. Goes in at half-time with a clean pair of shorts on him. And I suppose if your concentration levels drop off even a couple of percent and you're a reader of the game, all of a sudden you're reacting. And I promise you, if you're reacting at that level, you're done. It's over. You're not getting back. Like ordinarily, Van Dijk deals with situations, and we always think, oh, there wasn't even a problem there because he was sliding into position or was where he was needed to be. So he's become very, very reactionary, and unfortunately, he hasn't got the aggression or the tackling ability or any tackling ability, because he's obviously a guy that doesn't tackle really or make contact. And I suppose when he's reacting, it looks terrible.
So when you say he's done, can he get it back, or are we like done?
No, not done. Jesus, absolutely. No. I mean, he looks spent almost. You know what I mean? Right. I suppose. Look, as a player, I've often been caught in situations like that where you just feel down on yourself. You don't have the energy. You're just a little bit like maybe your testosterone levels have dropped a little bit, and you're not quite right. But I suppose the important thing is just to keep going. And often it's just one thing happens or one good thing happens for you. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. But you got to keep doing the right things. Keep training as well as you possibly can. Keep doing your prehabilitation, your post-training workout, getting your sleep, your food right. And often, I often find sometimes when you're kind of caught in a slump, you try to make a pass and you'd almost get it wrong, but it ends up being a great pass and you get a round of applause from the crowd and you kind of go, oh, hang on a minute. And then there's just a little bit of life comes into you and you get yourself going again. That really, I mean, I know a lot of people will be listening and they'll say to me, how can he be tired? He's just had a summer off. But it's a mental fatigue as opposed to a physical fatigue. Like I said, these guys have been on the road for a long, long time. International games in the summer, international window coming up. They're not going to get a break till probably next summer. And that's why I use the kind of the base camp at Everest analogy, because they know that they're in this till probably the end of May. That's a long time. So look, I hope they snap out of it. I hope the manager can somehow motivate the players. I hope the manager can get them going, can reinvigorate themselves. Like I said, I think this will be a blessing in disguise. Maybe not blessing, I think that's a wrong term to use with the Queen dying, but maybe for him as a manager, a kind of a good thing that he can maybe give his players a few days of a rest and come back next week and get them going.
Yeah, no, fascinating thoughts from Damien on Liverpool. Liverpool fans, 53106, you want to get involved with a question or a comment?
Yeah, I completely agree with Damien in terms of them. It's amazing that when you consider the millions of pounds that are spent in sports science departments now and the amount of personnel that are in sports science departments now, that you can have a situation where, what are we, a little over half a dozen games into a season and we're talking about a team looking tired. Now again, as Damien says, it's as much mental as it is physical, but there's something, they have got something wrong there. They definitely have got something wrong in terms of their lead in. They shouldn't look neither physically nor mentally drained 6-7 games into a league season, and I think there's definitely going to be question marks asked there in the background. Now, the one thing I'd caveated with, John, is I remember reading at the time about Liverpool's pursuit of Klopp when they brought him in at first. Edwards was still there. He was still the key decision maker at Liverpool at the time. And they went to meet Klopp to explain to him why they thought he was the ideal person for the job and all of that. And what part of their sales pitch was that Edwards started talking to Klopp about people think that your Dortmund side haven't performed as well. Well, we've looked at the underlying numbers and we can see from the underlying numbers that you should have been way higher in the league than you should, and a lot of things haven't gone in your favour and all of that kind of thing. So they were looking into more than just the result. And if you do the same with Liverpool at the moment, now I'll leave the Napoli game to one side. They were just awful against Napoli and deservedly were absolutely battered in that game. But previous to that, like, all of the numbers around the Everton game show that they should have won the game against Everton. All of the numbers around the game against Manchester United show that they should have won the game against Manchester United. Like, if you have 5 points there that they have gone missing, all of a sudden things don't look half as bad as they are at the moment. So I wouldn't be jumping. I think they have had a little bit of bad luck, and then as Damien has said, you have the Thiago thing. I wouldn't be pressing alarm buttons yet, really, to be quite honest about it.
I suppose we're talking about titles here, and we're talking about Liverpool being very close to win the title last season, went to the final day, and these are the points you're just slipping away to Manchester City, and that's the issue. When people talk about title contenders, you're now more talking to them as a team that'll get in the top four.
But John, to be honest about it, I would have, at the start of the season, if you would ask me what's the best Liverpool can hope for this year, I would have said distant second to City. And what do I think is the best they can achieve now? Distant second to City. I don't see how they could possibly have mixed it with City this year. We had the best team in the world sign the best player in the world. There was only one outcome. And I know it's not quite that simple, that it doesn't always just gel like that. But when you're Haaland and you're City, it does just gel just like that.
Damien?
Do you know, Shane, if we're talking about sports science people and fellas behind the scene, you'd wonder what kind of manager Klopp is. If you were a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning or whatever it may be, and you've got all the readouts of all the numbers and the heart rates and the zones players are getting into, the whole 9 yards. and you go and see Klopp, do you think he's a manager that would sit down and look at that? Or like, would he just say, hey, get that out of my face, man? You know, these lads need to be worked. And I know people would say, like, well, why do you bother employing them and stuff like that? But, I mean, you take some serious courage. Klopp's a big man. I've seen it. Like, to walk into his office with a printout of paper and say, look, the lads are working too hard. I mean, it's an awkward one, that. I mean, you're the manager. I mean, I know you're supposed to trust your staff and stuff, but it's an awkward one for a fitness coach, you know.
Yeah, it's actually good timing on it, Damien. I know this definitely wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea, but I've literally just finished a book by a journalist, Rory Smith, a book called Expected Goals, which is basically about
that XG thing.
There you are. It's about the whole rise of stats over the last 2 decades or so. So it is, and again, that's why it's fresh in my mind about Edwards and him approaching Klopp. And they say in the book, Edwards says in the book, that one of the reasons that Klopp from the outside looks like this all-knowing, all-confident manager, but that really they found he was completely and utterly open to looking at the numbers, looking at the data, taking other people's opinions on board, even though from the outside looking at him, I don't know. I would imagine he's, you know...
Is that not just when the data is good, Shane?
That's it.
everyone loves the good data, but bad data seems to slip through.
Correct, 100%. Yeah, so yeah, look, if you're the guy with the laptop, as Damien says, if you're the guy with the laptop and the laptop says one thing and Jurgen says another thing, there's only going to be one winner between Jurgen and the laptop, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm the Luddite in this conversation, so but Pep Blinders has an important role to play then, surely, as a buffer.
He's getting nothing but abuse. Apparently it's all his fault for writing the book, is it?
Yeah.
So solutions, Damien, are there any easy solutions? Because obviously the transfer window is closed now.
I suppose this is where Klopp's got to earn his corn, really, and motivate the players. You know, engage with them, get them believing again. You know, it might not be the stick, it might not be the carrot, but he's got to get into their souls again and re-motivate them. And whatever his technique is for motivating players, he's got to make them believe, you know, that it's worth it. Put the hard yards in now, and those February nights, you know, the League Cup final is around that time, the knockout stage of the Champions League, all the good bit that we're all looking forward to. You know, we just have to get through this period. And that's why these managers get paid such huge money, because that's what they're good at. They need to be able to motivate their players or re-motivate them if they're lacking. So that's where he gets his money, as far as I'm concerned.
If they are looking for upsides, Damien, Harvey Elliott has been very good. He looks like he's going to be a serious footballer, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But he's developing, you know what I mean? I mean, bringing Harvey Elliott into the Liverpool team maybe last year would have been great, but asking him to kind of pick up the club and go, do you know what, everyone's lacking here, Milner's struggling, everyone's struggling, can you carry us? No, he might well do, but it's a big ask for a kid. You know, the kid's just be kind of tidying up around the edges, learning, developing in a team that's doing really well. It's very difficult for young kids to kind of carry the weight of a football club, especially the size of Liverpool. But he's done great, and he just needs to keep doing his thing, and hopefully the team kicks into gear.
Yeah, Carvalho the same. I suppose we haven't seen Núñez yet, have we? You know, really.
Well, we got one glimpse of him.
We haven't seen, say, 6 months of him, or if he's going to work out or not. We don't know yet, really.
Yeah, look, even just the extra option of a quality player there when they're all available will be a big help to them as well. But he certainly looks a handful. Now, look, the fact that his first proper physical test and the first time anybody's given him a bit of niggle, he's gone and reacted, you can be 100% sure he is going to get that every week from now on, and every centre half is going to fancy their chances of winding him up. So that wasn't the cleverest move to react so quickly there, but he does look like he has something about him, that's for sure.
Did you wind up any defenders? Sorry, Damien.
No, but that could be something like Núñez come back and think could be the catalyst. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of players that kind of feeling sorry for themselves, or things aren't quite working. Like, you look at someone like Erling Haaland. You know, if you're feeling tired as a Man City player, and all of a sudden he walks through the door and starts doing what he's doing, that's going to breathe the team, because we're going places. But it just seems to be a bit of kind of self-pity around Liverpool at the moment. But if he can come back in and get into the type of form that Haaland is, maybe not that type of form, but reasonable form, a lot of the players might just think, oh, hang on a minute. And that's why you need to refresh your squad, so that staleness comes out. So, look, Núñez is there. I think Luis Diaz is doing really well. Maybe Thiago will come back in the team. They can get themselves going again.
Were you somebody to wind up defenders? Forwards, Damien?
No, not really. It wasn't really my thing, because, like, I always think concentration is an important part, and also I always used to, when they used to get under my skin, I used to hate it when I lost concentration. I got involved in things that I shouldn't be getting involved in, because then that's when mistakes happen, and that's when you kind of get caught in position, and or maybe you don't help someone else because you're sorting out your own problem, your issue, you're centre forward, and you probably should be covering someone else. But no, not particularly. But listen, if it happened in the flow of the game, then obviously you don't shy away from it, and a lot of centre forwards would.
You didn't go looking for it, I suppose, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't go looking for it. But if they were looking for it, you wouldn't turn it down. But I'd always remember just staying focused, staying concentrated, remember about that. And then if you got a chance to leave one on someone, you got a free hit, then you would do, obviously.